The gospel reading for this third Sunday of Easter is from the well-known story of the walk to Emmaus in Luke chapter 24. Yes, indeed, this chapter is typical of the Lucan narrative style because the story is resolved and reaches its climax around a table, around a meal. One of the standout activities of Jesus' ministry throughout the Gospel of Luke is eating. I've mentioned this before, that there is at least some kind of reference, at least implied, to eating in every one of the 24 chapters of Luke. And Jesus is at the center of it all. Some notable examples: Jesus is born in a feeding trough for animals. Jesus is accused early in his ministry of being a glutton and a drunkard. What is worse, he eats with all the wrong people. Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? Then he shares the Passover meal with his disciples the night before he died. So it's instructive that in the resurrection story about the walk to Emmaus, that in the end, it's not Jesus' teaching, significant nonetheless, that opens their eyes. It's not his physical presence, significant nonetheless, that opens their eyes. It's Jesus breaking and sharing bread with his friends. It's his blessing of food. In the sharing of bread at an ordinary table, we catch a glimpse of Jesus' transformative kingdom. It's when Jesus takes what he is going to eat, breaks off a piece, and shares it with everyone else gathered at the table. It's like he's taking the conventional expectation that when someone comes to the table, they'll keep for themselves the food placed before them. Jesus, again, turns upside down everybody's expectation. There's this self-giving from a heart of love that offers not what is perfect, but what is broken to everyone. That's not how I instinctively operate. If I'm going to share something, especially food, I want to make sure I'm offering another the best pieces, the biggest ones, the best looking ones off the grill, the best of what I can give. But not Jesus, not dwelling predominantly on our performance and perfection, but learning to receive and accept what is imperfect in and around us. A man dies and goes to heaven. Of course, St. Peter meets him at the pearly gates. St. Peter says, here's how it works. You need 100 points to make it into heaven. You tell me all the good things you've done, and I give you a certain number of points for each item, depending on how good it was. When you reach 100 points, you get in. Okay, said the man. I was married to the same woman for 50 years and never cheated on her, even in my heart. That's wonderful, says St. Peter. That's worth 3 points. 3 points, he says. Well, I attended church all my life and supported its ministry with my tithe and service. Terrific, says St. Peter. That's certainly worth a point. 1 point? Golly. How about this? I started a soup kitchen in my city and worked in a shelter for homeless veterans. Fantastic. That's good for 2 more points, he says. 2 points, the man cries. At this rate, the only way I get into heaven is by the grace of God. St. Peter says, come on in. This is the grace of God. Despite our imperfect efforts to catch God's attention. From broken to broken. From broken, meaning despised and rejected, what Jesus suffered himself on the cross, to broken, meaning touching what is broken within us. In the holy meal, Jesus touches what is broken in our lives and in need of healing and in need of being made whole again. Bread broken, the body of Christ given, broken for you, and everyone else. The Holy Communion magnifies the truth of grace, a truth that we don't see in each other normally in our compare and compete world. Jesus takes the initiative to find us on the road, on our journeys, and approaches us because we are beloved children of God, not because we have accomplished something grand. The disciples on the road felt as failures. The past 3 years were all for nothing, it seemed. But despite their brokenness, despite our brokenness, and even because of it, Jesus approaches us with love. Within our historic Christian faith, we affirm that all humanity bears the imprint of the divine. Genesis 1:27, that we are made in the image of God. This is the starting point for drawing forward our sense of dignity. This is the intrinsic value that is ascribed, not earned, based on our essence in reflecting a good and loving God. When we start with the grace of resting in our dignity despite what is broken within us, then the truth of our identity flows forward to embrace those around us. We then respect them. Respect means to see a second time. We consider another anew. A colleague who teaches a 2-year confirmation class concludes the program by announcing a final exam. Each student must take the 3-hour exam, after which the pastor takes up the answers with each student. As you can imagine, the students get quite anxious and nervous leading up to the exam. All kinds of reasons are presented why some can't participate. The pastor gently but firmly persists and insists, with a twinkle in his eye, this moment will define and determine the student's standing in the church and with God for the rest of eternity. At first, the students are shocked. When after the written test is completed and handed in, the pastor in dramatic fashion rips up the paper without even looking at any of the answers written down and deposits unceremoniously the shredded pieces into the recycling bin. Grace doesn't demand perfection as a condition for belonging to God's reign. Grace doesn't insist on getting it right before you receive the gift of Jesus' life in yours. Grace doesn't put conditions on anyone coming with outstretched hand to the table. Our lives begin and end in the love and grace of God. Whatever our good efforts and however we try to get it right, this will make a difference and open up airspace for God's grace to flood in, yes, but we can't control the outcome. Sometimes we need Jesus to break in when we can't break out, when we are stuck more often than we may think. In the end, it is the freedom of God's agency to show mercy and open the eyes of our hearts. You are welcome to partake of this holy meal. And next time you connect at the table, in person, at your local church, or by watching online, take a good look at who is there beside you, also receiving the gift, the grace, also a beloved child of God. Will you see them with renewed vision as beloved children of God?